In this video, what we're going to go ahead and talk about is how to make chords, and specifically we're going to start with major chords. The reason why is because of this little quote right here that I have, which is, you can make anything if you know your major scale. Pretty much everything within music is born out of the major scale. So if we can understand the major scale, we can make a lot of different things, and we'll specifically touch on a lot of different chords and concepts. There will be other videos in the future specifically going over these specific kinds of chords, but we'll go ahead and show you how this kind of works. So in terms of making chords, one of the first things that you have to end up doing is you start by making the major scale, and we'll review that here. There's also a different video on making the major scale. And then of course, by taking specifically from that major scale the first scale degree, the third, and then the fifth. Now, one of the things that you'll notice on this worksheet, and again, this worksheet is specifically on my website for free, we specifically have these little tiny hats on each of the numbers. And here at the very, very bottom, and I'm going to go ahead and try and make this a little bit bigger here, but specifically this symbol refers to that idea of a scale degree. And what a scale degree refers to is the positioning or the order in which a note is within a scale. So for example, in a C major scale, C would be what we would call the first scale degree, or scale degree number 1. And so that's why we would write in that C is 1, and then we would draw that little hat on top to say that we're referring to, it's the first note of the scale. And so again, from the major scale, all you have to do is really take number 1, number 3, and number 5. And then after that, you have your major chord. And then from there, what you can end up doing is that you can go ahead and make a variety of different things. 2 examples of chords that we're going to go ahead and look at today are specifically how to make a minor chord, which all you have to do is you just lower that third in order to make it minor. You lower that third specifically by a half step, and we'll see that here in a second. And then the other one that we're going to go ahead and look at is a major 7th chord. And so you just add a major 7th in order to make a major 7 chord. Notice how this is major 7 and this is major 7th. Whenever we have that TH at the top, we're referring to the interval, so the distance between one letter and then the other. Major 7, we're referring to a variety of notes. But here's an example over here in orange of trying to be able to make an A major chord. And then from there, of course, making the A minor chord and then an A major 7. So I've written out here already the A major scale. You'll notice that I've written out a couple of things. I first started by writing out all of the ordering, right? Of starting note, whole step, half, whole, half. And then what I did was I went through and I, of course, wrote all of my notes, adhering to the rules of the major scale. So in A major, we have A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, and A. Above that, I've written the scale degree numbers, just so that you're able to see that, okay? And so again, from this scale, all we have to be able to do is we just see that, okay, so A is our first, C sharp is our third, and then E is our 5th. And so those 3 notes are scale degrees 1, 3, and 5, and these are what make up the A major chord. Now, in order to make an A minor chord, all you do is you just take that C sharp and then you lower it by a half step. All you have to do is lower it by a half step in order to make it A minor. So A, C natural, and E would make us A minor. If we wanted an A major 7, the way that it works is that we would just have specifically an A major chord, and then what we do is with the A major 7, there's 2 parts. So we have specifically the A major chord, and then we add on top of that a 7th, a major 7th above A. So again, we're referring to that distance. Now, I've written underneath this a tip for finding major 7ths and other 7ths in general in terms of the interval, because this can be oftentimes a little bit tricky, especially if you aren't too sure about your key signatures for major scales. There's a really, really easy way to go ahead and find a major 7th versus a minor 7th. So for example, all you have to do is, first step is you start with an octave. So like for example, C to C, right? C to the very next C would be an octave. Then all you do is you drop down the top note by a half step. So in this case, C going down a half step would take us to B. And so all of a sudden, C to B, that distance is a major 7th. Okay, that is a major 7th. Then third thing, if you ended up dropping that top note down a whole step from the octave, okay? So if you dropped it down a whole step, so starting from that octave and you drop down a whole step to a B flat, that's what gives you a minor seventh, which is kind of interesting. But intervals oftentimes will have this hierarchy where if we have a major interval, if you go with the top note and you drop it down a half step, you'll get minor. If you drop it down another half step, you'll get an interval which we call a diminished interval. And so there's always a hierarchy and it always moves by half steps. Now what I'm going to go through quickly is on the back side of this is that I'm going to go through this entire process with a completely different key just so that you can see how this process is done one step at a time. So specifically, and if you would like to do this along with me, you absolutely can, but we're going to go ahead and do this for B flat major, okay? So what we're going to do is that we're going to try and find the B flat major chord first, then we're also going to try and find the B flat minor chord, and then we're also going to try and find the major 7. We're going to go ahead and try and find these 3 chords, okay? Now, starting with the B flat major scale, right, that's where we have to start first. So first step, we start with B flat major scale. So B flat, of course, is our starting note, after which we have that process of whole, whole, half, then whole, 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 half. And if I were you, I would definitely write out all of the process so that it's easier not to lose track. Now, if you remember from the major scale video, the way that this works is that whenever you're in a scale, specifically this one starts with a flat, all of the rest of the time you're going to end up having flats, you won't have sharps, and you have to adhere to those rules. So again, we don't have repeated letters, we don't skip over letters, we don't ever repeat or have, different sharps. These kinds of things are going to be really, really important for us to stay on track. So first of all, we start with that idea of, okay, B flat, up a whole step. Where do we go to? So if you just kind of imagine on the keyboard, so a B flat is that black key that's on the right side of the 3 black keys. So if we go up a half step, that gets us to B. And so in order to go to a whole step, we have to go another half step. So that actually gets us to C, so B flat to C. Then a whole step up from C, we know from white key to white key here, we would have D. Now, this is where we have a half step. So again, usually you might be thinking in your head, so D up a half step, we would be thinking D sharp. But again, we have a D, we can't have another D, and then also we're working in flats. So what's another name for D sharp? It's also known as E flat, E flat. Then what we can do is we go up a whole step from E flat. It's the same situation as the B flat, where again, if we think E flat, up a half step would be just regular E, up another half step, we would end up going to F. Then a whole step to G, then specifically we would end up having a whole step then to A, and then a half step to B flat. If you don't end up on a B flat, that usually means that, again, something ended up going wrong along the way. But again, now what the second step is just to take out numbers 1, 3, and 5, right? So number 1 is B flat, scale degree number 3 is D, and then F. And that's your B flat major chord. So that's the first step. B flat, D, and F is B flat major chord. Now, in order to get the minor chord, all we do is we take that middle note and we lower it a half step. Now, the reason why is because whenever we're going to minor, from major to minor, if you've seen the minor scale video, specifically, you're lowering the 3rd note, the 6th note, and then the 7th note. And so, since those are the 3 notes that you're lowering, the only note that we will actually see in a chord is the 3rd, right? Because, again, in the chord, you're going to have 1, 3, and 5. You don't see 6 and 7. So, specifically the 3rd note, you're going to end up lowering that one by a half step. And that's where we get B flat minor. B flat, D flat, and F is B flat minor here. Now, in order to get a major 7, again, major 7 specifically has 2 parts, right? So it has the major chord, so we'll go ahead and copy that down here. We have B flat, D, and then F. And then what we have to add on top of it is that we have to add that major 7th on top. So in the case of the major 7th, so B flat, D, F, what we're trying to start with is that we're starting with that idea of, okay, we want an octave first, right? So an octave, of course, from B flat would just be to a B flat, right? Now all you have to ask yourself is, okay, can we go ahead and lower it a half step, right? B flat lowered down a half step would just get us to A natural. Now, this is the shortcut if you didn't already figure out the entire scale. But again, if you really wanted the major seventh, you could also just look at your major scale that you've created at the very, very beginning. The seventh note here is an A. So in terms of a B flat major 7 chord, it's B flat D F and then A on top. And this has been a video specifically on how to create chords. Eventually we'll end up putting out a video on how to create all the different kinds of chords, especially the 7th chords, because those are especially intriguing within like popular music, modern music, jazz. But for now, this is kind of the way that we can start foundationally building chords and understanding chords. Always starting from the major scale and then making your way and kind of branching off. But thank you for joining me today, and I will see you next time.